I missed. It's a good thing though I play Magic the Gathering and not football. Alright, so let's keep going with the Q&A. This is part 2 of I don't know how many videos it's going to take to make of this, but we're going to get through them all. Alright, so coming up next, Nikachu, tell us about what you do for a living. And if you plan to dedicate more time to MTG and YouTube in the future, providing the channel grows. Well, let me tell you this, as this channel grows, I will keep dumping more content. And as you see, I am adding more and more content as this channel is growing. More people are attracted, they're liking and watching the videos, and yeah, so I'm just responding by dumping more stuff out there, and it's very addicting. What do I do for a living? I mean, basically right now, it's just the YouTube channel. That's my main source of income. And I mean, if you want to know what I'm doing with my life, I am in university right now. I'm studying business. And like more or less, I try to apply everything that I'm learning from the school to the YouTube channel. So it's working out both ways. Since when could you go to university and directly apply what you're learning to your life? So I'm very happy about that. So yeah, so now next, how did you stick to Merfolk through Hogak and other tears? How on earth do you stick to Merfolk? The tier 3 deck, Merfolk is useless. It's not the real humans, it's not the real spirits. It's not people don't even refer to humans or spirits as a Merfolk deck anymore, because like Merfolk apparently isn't even in the conversation. So how on earth do I play this in the midst of like these horrible, terrible meta games shook up by these super polarizing, powerful decks? And the answer is Merfolk does incredibly well in these meta games. And what happened in the Treasure Cruise era, and even now in the Hogak Summer era, and even during Eldrazi Winter. Now, a lot of people say that Merfolk had a good matchup in the Eldrazi Winter era, and I don't actually believe that. I think Merfolk did not lose nearly as much as the other decks, but the point is that if there's anything that can shrink the metagame, that's good for Merfolk. Merfolk is very good at being customized for a particular metagame, and if the diversity is really wide, that is to Merfolk's disadvantage, and when the metagame is really narrow, then Merfolk can play like very key, narrow, strong, powerful cards like Tidebinder Mage and Chalice of the Void, and very specific counter spells. Dispel is a great counter spell, but it needs to be in the right metagame. So when the metagame is in the right position, you can customize the Merfolk deck to really beat it. And when we see the Hogak Summer meta and the results, Merfolk was going deep in GPs. Merfolk was making tons of 5-0s because we could prepare for Hogak, and we can also Hogak pushed a lot of decks away, so we didn't have to prepare for a lot of random nonsense. We could just focus on the very few competing decks that were working in Modern. So the answer is that Merfolk is great when there is this big boogeyman monster. And a lot of people say I want to ban cards for Merfolk's benefit, but actually the more diverse I make Modern, the worse Merfolk gets in some sense, or the more challenging it gets to deck build and play in a super wide open metagame. Alright, so what ignited your spark to play Merfolk? So this might get related, I might answer this question sort of twice, but I started playing Merfolk because it was so similar to standard mono blue devotion during Ravnica Theros Standard. The deck also played Merfolk, played main deck Tidebinder Mage, played main deck Master of Waves, for main deck Thassa, God of the Sea, and a lot of related cards that were similar to Merfolk, like Judge's Familiar, which is a 1/1 flyer for a blue, or it's a hybrid actually, it could also be played for white, and it can be sacrificed to counter an instant or sorcery unless you pay 1. So very similar to Curse Catcher. So overall, the deck played incredibly similar to Merfolk. You make a bunch of creatures, you use counter spells, tempo your opponent out, and you also can get unblockable creatures either through going wide with Master of Waves or through activating Thassa, God of the Sea. And then when I was struggling with Boggles, I'm like, you know what, I scrapped this deck. This deck sucks. I'm done. Done losing to people just playing Spellskite and auto-winning. How do you beat Spellskite? So I ended up, I didn't understand the Boggles deck, but I did understand the Mono Blue Devotion deck. I knew it very, very well in Standard, and that's where, I don't know where the transition came from, who suggested it, but I realized that, you know, I could play Merfolk with a lot of the cards I already had in Standard, and it would play very similarly, and it did. It would play almost exactly the same way, and it was a very easy, smooth transition to play Merfolk in Modern. And actually, I didn't intend on staying with Merfolk. My intention was buy into Modern for relatively cheap, because I already have some cards, Mutavaults and stuff like that from the Standard Mono Blue Devotion deck. It also had Mutavault. And then over time, after I've got comfortable with Modern, I would buy into Splinter Twin, because I'm like, you know what, I just want to play the Tier 1 decks. But that didn't happen, only because my win rate with Modern Merfolk was so high at the time. I think it was higher than anyone playing any of the Splinter Twin decks, which is what kept me playing Merfolk and still sticking with Merfolk even to today. Alright, so do you think your channel expand in terms of deck archetypes? I see you splash Merfolk with different colors. However, what I mean is, will you make content about other decks, or will you continue to go only the Merfolk direction? So dominantly, I am going to go in the Merfolk direction. I do have some intention of playing other decks in budget form. I really do want to show people that you can build all of Modern's archetypes, or almost all of Modern's archetypes, for somewhere between $100 to $150. And I would love to make some content like that out there. And there's maybe some fun stuff I'd like to do, maybe on behalf of my fans who want to see me play other tribal decks. Just recently I came out with a fairies video, people loved it. I actually think I could improve that deck by a lot. I think I was restricted when I was playing black. I think if we splash red, we have access to Fiery Islet, Kiki Jiki to have an instant combo with Pestermite. We have access to Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon, which would work with Aether Vial. So we could push, I think that deck could get a lot better. I went 3-2 and I didn't play very well. And I think even with my poor blue-black version of fairies, I could go 4-1. And I think if we improve the list by a lot, it can get, I don't know if it could get top tier competitive, but it could get somewhat seriously competitive online. So I might explore those things in the future. What is your most memorable comeback with Merfolk? Well, I mean, I can't think of anything in particular. I mean, I can think of one thing in particular. I know my biggest comebacks are always something to the effect of, I'm super dead on board, I need to draw a Silver Gilladept, Violet in, draw a Master of Waves, and then rip more Master of Waves off the top of my deck. And you know, if you've played a million matches of Merfolk in Modern, then you've definitely have been in that situation where you rip the Silver Gilladept, slammed it, draw I don't know, a Master of Waves, or draw Spreading Seas, play Spreading Seas, get the Master of Waves, play the Master of Waves, play a bunch of tokens, and then all of a sudden what looked hopeless is now looking sort of manageable. Then you draw another Master of Waves, suddenly you're ahead in the game, and then there's some big comeback. But if I could name a particular comeback that a lot of people are aware of, it was my Game 2 in the finals of GP Vancouver against Josh Utter-Leighton, where, I mean, I thought I was just stone dead. There was a point where Josh had 5 cards in his hand, all gas, Death Shadow in play, and I had nothing. I just had, he Inquisitioned me and Thought Seized away all my good cards. All I had was a Dispel and a Minamo in hand or something like that. But basically my hand was empty. I'm facing a Death Shadow. Eventually I was facing a Liliana the Veil. Josh's hand is stacked. And the only reason I came back into this game was because I was able to bounce the Death Shadow at end of turn, putting a body on the board, and then I ripped a Spreading Seas, which crimped his black mana, and now all of a sudden he has a handful of cards, but he can't actually, he can only play 1 card a turn, so suddenly we're almost at even parity. So I play the Spreading Seas and I ripped a Lord, hitting the Liliana, so Liliana can't Edict me anymore. And then all of a sudden, as I keep drawing more cards off the top of my deck, and Josh cannot draw a black source, to unload his hand, I end up winning the game because of that. So that was probably the most. It's the one comeback I can remember, but there's certainly bigger. There's certainly some other dire situations I've had with Merfolk where only Master of Waves could save me. So why don't you stream one time a week on Twitch? So, I mean, one barrier I have with Twitch is I've never taken the time to set it up. I have a MacBook, and Streamlabs OBS doesn't work with OS X. It doesn't work with Apple computers or like the operating system. It needs to be done in Windows, and I use a virtual machine in order to play Magic the Gathering online for my videos. So to basically I have to go through installing all the streaming stuff within my virtual machine. I have the option to just stream at will on YouTube, but I would like to stream on Twitch. But then another thing is like, okay, when and where am I going to dedicate the time? This might be just an excuse. I could, in theory, just stream whenever, and then if I have no schedule at all. In my mind, I think if you want to be successful at streaming, you need to have a schedule and stick with it, and I don't really have the life at the moment that I can do that. I can't dedicate a certain amount of time every single week to a stream. What's great about YouTube is that I can make the videos whenever I want. I just make sure I have them uploaded at the times that I wanted. So I have all the videos prepared in the past, and then I upload it when they're necessary. So basically, there's a bit of a barrier of setting it up. That's all, and I don't know how much time I can dedicate to it. So therefore, I don't dedicate any time to it at all. Would I like to do it? Yes. Like I had some idea of doing it over the summer, but it just never happened. There's just a lot of things going on that just didn't make it happen. Do you actually own any living fishies? I do not. I'm looking for a modern deck to start with. Is Merfolk a good option? Merfolk is actually one of the best options to get into modern, because on a budget you basically still have almost the entire core deck, and on top of that you have the enormous community that is available to you from budget all the way to competitive that will help you on your journey, and it's a very helpful community for you getting into modern. So I actually think Merfolk is a very good choice if you want to get into modern. Now remember, you don't have to stick with Merfolk, and a lot of people don't, that's okay. And not only that, Merfolk is a stepping stone to a lot of other archetypes, especially humans. So as you build the pieces to Merfolk, you get the ether vials, you get phantasmal images. Those are transferable to the humans archetype. What kind of Merfolk do you feel the deck needs or wants at the moment? It needs a good one-drop. I mean, that's basically all it needs. It needs a good one-drop. If you would take the shell of the deck, we've got really good cards at 2 mana. We've got Merfolk Trickster, we have Lord of Atlantis, Master of the Pearl Trident, we have Silver Gill Adept. Even our top end, we have relatively good cards. Maybe they're just okay, they're not great anymore. Master Waves is getting clunky, but it's still a very powerful option if we want something at 4 mana. There's also Mirror Regery is fine. Maybe that could be something more powerful, but really what we're lacking is something on turn 1. Like the turn 1 creatures are just not that great, so I think that's what's lacking. I mean, in the past I would say it was like a Force of Will effect, but we got it. We have Force of Negation, and that's actually almost perfectly what we needed. It helps a lot. It's not Force of Will, but you know what? It's doing a pretty damn good job. It's countering the things that we need. And on top of that, it helps us because our opponents can't use it against us for any reason. So when they're using Force of Negation on us, like for example, an Infect can't use it to protect themselves, or any particular combo deck needs to combo off at instant speed if they want to use Force Negation. So it's like a Force of Will for Merfolk that other decks can't abuse. So that's what's great about Force Negation. But yeah, we need a 1-drop. Can we expect you at a Texas event anytime in the future? Not really. They don't have modern events at good times. Yeah, that's just basically it. And it's pretty far, so I have to fly there. And flying from where I am is pretty expensive. I mean, it's possible, but I mean, it's just unlikely, that's all. All right, we're getting to the second page. Yes, second page out of 4. When will you update your Legacy Poor Folk list? Also, can you bring back Merfolk in other formats? So the Legacy Poor Folk list, I mean, I'm glad that you liked it. I thought it was pretty interesting, but a lot of other people made mention that it was probably not the greatest idea. I shouldn't be making a budget Merfolk list from scratch going into Modern. Going into Legacy. What I should have done was take a stock competitive Modern Merfolk list and then played it in Legacy, because that might be the baseline for anyone who wants to play Legacy, and those who don't own Force of Will or Wasteland, or, I mean, not that Wasteland is even good right now, but Force of Will, True Name Nemesis, those more expensive cards, how to play the deck in Legacy, or like even Cavern of Souls. Cavern of Souls is not mandatory in Modern, but it's like pretty mandatory in Legacy. So maybe we'll do something like that in the future, where I make a more corrected Poor Folk list, make it in such a way that the players who already have the deck in Modern, Ether Vials and all, can play it in Legacy, because Ether Vial would be pretty good in Legacy, and I was playing with a vialless Poor Folk list, so maybe it could be poor for Legacy, but not necessarily for Modern. And I'm willing to play Merfolk in other formats. I haven't been motivated to play Standard recently, but I do look forward to Historic, which is going to come out, and hopefully they give us a good card. Maybe, I don't know, a Master of the Pearl Trident or Ether Vial or something like that. That would help the Merfolk deck a lot in Historic. I would like a printing of a blue-black reanimate Merfolk. Thoughts? I don't exactly know how you're designing this card. Is it like an instant or sorcery that brings a Merfolk onto the battlefield? Or is it like a Merfolk enters the battlefield and reanimates something? I think that would be pretty cool. But if it's an instant or sorcery, I think there's actually better options. There are reanimate spells for 1 black. Just put a creature with converted mana cost 3 or less from the graveyard on the battlefield. Don't know if you can hear it, but it's storming outside. It's storming. It's storming here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Alright, so 32. I recently picked up Poor Folk, and I am loving it. I went 1-2 at my first F&M, so pretty happy. What upgrades do you think I should go for first? So, my general answer for the Poor Folk deck is that it depends how much money you have at the time. I do think that the best things that you should go for are the Ether Vials. However, if you just don't have that money available, you should just upgrade basically all the other cards. 2 big cards I think you definitely need in competitive Magic are Ether Vial and Force Negation. I understand that those are very expensive, but those are cards you really want to be gunning for eventually. Cards that are not so necessary. Oh, we lost power. We lost power, people. Is it going to come back? It's back. We are back. I would do it in the dark. I don't care. That's how bad the storm is. So, but yeah, so Cavern of Souls not necessary. That's definitely not one of the things I would be gunning for first if you're rebuilding from your Poor Folk deck. But if you... So you have, I don't know if there's really a bad option. You could save your money to slowly get vials, and like I've told people many times before, having 1 vial in the deck is better than 0. Having 2 vials is better than 0. I really hated all those arguments in the past, you either have 4 or none. It's really stupid. But if you don't really want to, you just have a bit of money to upgrade a little bit over time, then just go for all the other cards, and that will be okay too. So next up, we've got, my question is, what's your favorite deck to play against with Merfolk? And I guess my favorite deck to play against is Grixis Death Shadow, because it's a matchup that I think requires a lot of skill to bring in the victory. I think you can lose against Grixis Death Shadow if you're not being patient or delicate enough, or you don't know when to swing back for victory. So I think requires a good amount of knowledge and skill. And another reason I like to play against it is that it's so rewarding when you're playing with skill, because I think my win rate against Grixis Death Shadow, and I think a lot of other very experienced Merfolk players, is that their win rates are very high against the Death Shadow deck. They give us natural Island Walk. So it's very, I think it's a skill-intensive matchup, and I think it's very rewarding when you do have that skill. So I do like playing, that's one reason I like to play against Grixis Death Shadow. So any advice for those who may want to also pursue their MTG passion through streaming, videos, or social media? Do it. Do it and start now. You have to start now, and you have to be consistent, all right? So one thing that made this channel, not just this channel, any channel successful is they are consistently making the content. They do not miss a beat. You have to keep doing it. If you like give up here or there, like it's a struggle in the beginning. It's hard work, all right? It's flat out. Doing content creation is super hard work, and some of that work is a lot easier for me, for a lot of reasons. I can take criticism pretty easily in the comment section. I'm very well versed with video editing, so I have no problem with that. So there's a lot of barriers to content creation that I don't have to deal with, but it's still a lot of work. It's so time consuming. You know, you have to put away time to make these videos. You have to put away time to upload them, and make sure they get out on Twitter, on Facebook, and any other necessary outlets. So, I mean, it's real work. It's real work, and so you have to then probably, if your life is full already, you're going to have to make some sort of cuts to it. You're going to have to part with what you don't think is important if you want to go in the content creation role. And so it's going to be some sacrifice, but in my opinion, it's very rewarding. And if you, I love it. I'm addicted to it. So that also makes it easier for me to keep doing this. But yeah, so start today. Don't worry about it. You start today, and you be consistent with your content, and don't be afraid of like being completely new. Maybe if I were to say, maybe in terms of Magic, if you're going to be playing, if you're going to be making videos of you with gameplay, don't be afraid of making mistakes on camera. Sure, there's going to be some people who are going to say, oh, this player is terrible, you know, forget them. Like, most content creators are not pros. And it's been like that for a very long time. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if I lose on camera. If I have a league that I go 1-4, uploading it anyway. I don't have time to scrap the whole thing and make a new league. I don't have time for that shit. Whatever. It's that's not to say that there aren't lessons to be learned from losing. Now, I try to play as tight of a game as I possibly can, because part of the value of my content is giving competitive strategic advice. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's your value to your audience. I mean, part of content creation is giving value to the viewer. I mean, that's like the big part of it. And that value doesn't have to be strategic advice. It can come in other forms. It's usually in the form of entertainment, or maybe you're just being a friend to other people. You know, they just want to watch you play the game because they live through you playing the game. And if you're having fun, they're having fun as well. So anyway, start, be consistent, and you know, don't be afraid of looking like an idiot on camera. I've been looking like an idiot on camera for years. I don't care. It's not a problem for me. So how did you start playing Magic? So I started playing Magic, I don't know, in 1999. My friends were playing the Pokemon trading card game as I was, and so we're all playing, and at some point they like graduated to Magic, and they showed me the game, and I'm like, well, this is stupid. Like, they gave me this, I can't even remember what I was playing, but like, they taught me how to block, but then my opponents are attacking through me with shadow creatures. They teach me how to cast spells, they're countering them. Like, essentially, every single rule they taught me, they was undermining it. And also, not to mention, the cards look hideous. I'm not a fan of the old art, or most of the old art. I mean, there's some things that I can like, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think the art was coming from a Pokemon trading card game where everything's so cutesy and perfect, and then going to Magic art where everything, I don't know, somehow is dull, grungy and stuff. It wasn't for me. But that's how I started playing Magic. Do you think Izzet Phoenix can make a comeback thanks to Merchant of the Veil coming in Eldraine, or at least be viable in the new meta? I don't think Merchant of the Veil is a very good card. It's like it dumps one card in the graveyard and you draw a card. I don't think that's their best option. I think Izzet Phoenix is just still around. It's just up to the tier 1 players if they want to keep playing the deck. It's simply up to them. There is a like in the hierarchy of like Magic players, the tier 1 players will just gravitate to whatever they think is the best. And if Izzet Phoenix isn't at that level, then a large chunk of them just collapse because they just want to play whatever's the best. They're not committed to the deck. They never were. Is Izzet Phoenix playable right now? Absolutely. Like, absolutely. It's getting 5-0s. It has results, even post banning of Faithless Looting. But now you have to be dedicated to the deck. You need to have as much, you need to build experience to push it to that level. Just like I have to do with Merfolk. There's no free easy wins anymore, but those top tier players, they want the free easy wins. That's why they were playing it in the first place, and now they're just going to move to the next deck that has the free easy wins. So in terms of coming back off of one card, I don't think Merchant of the Veil is enough. I could be wrong. I mean, it's 1 mana, but I mean, I don't see the difference between that and, what's it called? Insolent Neonate, for example. So my question is if you've ever dealt with burnout when playing competitively, and if so, how did you overcome it? I've definitely had strings of very poor results causing me to question why I care about this hobby so much. Have you ever felt the same way? I have felt burnout in every single game I've played. In chess, in poker, and even Magic the Gathering. And the answer is and you know what, burnout has this cascading effect where you're not doing so well, and then you're starting to lose, and then you try hard to catch up, get those good results again, but then you're losing even more, burning you out even more, and then it just piles on itself. So you're burning out more, you're losing even more, which burns out even more. You gotta step away from the game. It's simple as that. You just have to take a break. I've taken breaks from chess and poker, and they can be a month long. Don't worry, you're gonna come back to Magic, but you need to separate yourself from the game. You have to do something else. You have to do something else with your time. You gotta play another hobby. I don't know, either find another hobby or game to just make yourself happy. And then at some point, what's gonna happen is when you come back and you're rejuvenated and you're much more fresh and hungry to play Magic again, you might even be able to see all the mistakes that you were making in the past. You weren't thinking clearly. Like when you're burning out, you're not playing nearly as well as you used to, or you were not acknowledging some weaknesses that you had in your game at the time, whether it was a weakness in skill or it was a weakness in deck building. When you're burning out, you just can't think clearly. Which is why it becomes a cascading effect into ruin. But you need to step back. You need to take a break. Sometimes we need to take a break, and it's normal. It's normal. It's unfortunate. Unfortunately for the content creators, when I'm burning out, I have no choice but to keep making content. I can't step away from the game, and I just have to just blow right through it, which is whatever. It is what it is. Just what I have to do. But as a competitive player, you have to step back and do something else. Maybe play another format if you really want to. Play a format that you don't usually play. Play Commander. Play play Pauper. Maybe switch decks. Just do something that's fun, that made you feel like Magic was fun all over again. Get yourself into the position of what made you play Magic in the first place. We all started playing Magic because this was just an incredibly fun game that energized us, and then eventually we moved it to a competitive level. But we need to bring ourselves back to a point where we're enjoying the game for the sake of the game itself, and not focusing on particularly winning. I don't know, brew something unusual just to get out of that competitive rut. But yeah, my suggestion, just step back and relax. You need to take a vacation from the normal Magic that you usually do. And honestly, what I've done in the past, I usually have this sort of role of playing other games. I'll play like chess, or I'll play like video games. Gotta love Mario Maker. So huge shout out to Mario Maker. I'm a huge Mario Maker fan. Love it. A lot of fun. Yeah, that's how I deal with burnout. You have to take a step back. You have to take breaks, and it's totally normal. All right. So one last question. Can you think of a time that you wanted to stop playing Merfolk? No. And if so, did you continue for the love of the archetype, or did you feel compelled to do so because of the channel? And if you did quit Merfolk, what deck would you think you would have picked up? So yeah, I've never felt compelled to play anything else, which is why I've consistently played Merfolk on this channel the entire time. I don't know if this question is asked somewhere later, but the only time I might have felt to play another archetype was in Legacy, was just Legacy Slivers. I think that's a very cool looking deck, and I would like to play Legacy Slivers. It's everything that I would like to see. It sort of looks like the archetype that I want to play in it's closer to modern Merfolk in the way I want to play it. Whereas like Legacy Merfolk is like, I don't know, it's its own being. That's very separate and different in my opinion from the modern Merfolk version. But like in terms of modern, I've never decided to switch. That's why you've seen consistent Merfolk content, and I've never felt like I'm going to change to anything else. So I wouldn't play anything else. And that's it for today's video. This is part 2 of Nikachu, going over all your questions about NikachuMTG.